My name is Jamie and I'm a Sage Intacct consultant here at Ion. Today we will go through a short demonstration of Sage Intacct for non-profits by delving into 5 key areas: the Sage Intacct NFP Digital Board Book, revenue management, grant billing and tracking, spend management, and outcome-based reporting. If you have any queries or questions, you can find out more information at ionhq.co.uk. To begin with, we'll start with Sage Intacct's very own non-profit digital board book. This is comprised of 3 different dashboards: financial health, balance sheets, and income statements. As a non-profit organisation, forecasting, resource allocation, and critical decision making are 3 key areas for success. The digital board book dashboards have been carefully designed to provide enhanced visibility, automation, and insight for today's non-profit organisations. They are centred around analysing revenue trends, tracking expenses in relation to project results, and monitoring sustainability metrics. In combination, these focus areas can enable organisations to make effective decisions that will propel them towards achieving their wider goals. When it comes to funding for a non-profit organisation, it can often be a source of significant uncertainty. This could be in relation to the amount, but also the timing of when it's expected. This creates a need for other short-term methods of continuing operations, even if current sources of funding are stopped or delayed. This requires certain questions to be asked. For example, what short-term options are at our disposal if we are required to alter our allocation of revenue? Are there any campaigns or projects that we could carry out in order to cover our shortfall? And in the event of a significant reduction in funding, how long will our reserves sustain our operations? What you can see here is the income dashboard, which is part of the non-profit digital board book. Here in the centre, we can see our revenue composition, and therefore identify any revenue sources that appear to be heavily relied on. If, for example, we found a significant dependency on government grants, we might consider investing into the diversification of our revenue streams, potentially making the decision to increase spending on fundraising events or membership benefits. We can also see that our organisation has built a strategic reserve, and this is done in order to sustain operations through a short-term gap in income. This can provide the confidence to increase spending when investing into a new source of income. If we now navigate across to the balance sheet dashboard, through the asset composition and net asset composition charts, we can see that our level of unrestricted investments has grown. This signifies an area that could potentially be used to increase liquidity if needed, therefore providing a financial cushion that may provide key decision makers the confidence to invest in new growth areas. On a whole, this type of decision-making process is exactly what the Sage Intacct board book is designed to enhance. It embeds a fluid and efficient flow of information throughout an organisation so that key stakeholders can have the analytical power that they need and exactly when they need it. Now, let's take a quick look at non-profit revenue recognition within Sage Intacct. As a non-profit organisation, you may often find yourself having to manage a diverse array of revenue sources. Changes in legislation and revenue recognition practices make it essential for an organisation to have the ability to reevaluate and evolve their internal processes. Sage Intacct revenue recognition for non-profits is focused on streamlining compliance and centralising your revenue recognition. For both exchange and non-exchange revenue, like conditional grants and contributions, Sage Intacct will allow you to account for your revenue streams in one central area. Here, you can see a conditional milestone schedule. And right from this screen, we can look into the general transaction history, we can look into the related posting details, as well as the history of the schedule, which is ideal for keeping an auditable trail of information. By clicking out of this specific schedule, we can see how Sage Intacct provides a user-friendly platform for managing a range of different revenue recognition schedules. Sage Intacct can automate conditional and installment-based revenue recognition schedules so that you can base your system around the completion of milestones through a variation of methods. Having this information all in one place with automated calculations, Sage Intacct eliminates the laborious task of creating and updating spreadsheets that would otherwise be required to manage your deferred revenue. When looking at our revenue schedule home screen, we can see that with Sage Intacct, we are only a click away from documented revenue schedules. Analyze progress on delivery, systematically track conditions and barriers, whilst embedding error reduction and commitment to delivery into the very heart of your organization. Next, let's take a look at grant tracking and billing by starting off on the grants homepage. From here, we're given an overview of all of our different grants with a collation of key data points. If you're a non-profit organisation, it's likely that you will receive funding through grants. In many cases, it can be a struggle to accurately track the related information. Costs are also an area that can involve a significant amount of data, which, if managed incorrectly, can lead to you inaccurately capturing costs, which can, of course, impact the related reimbursements. When it comes to achieving mission success, there are three critical success factors: control, visibility, and compliance. Grant tracking and billing in Sage Intacct is specifically designed to focus on enhancing an organization in these three areas. With this system, you can concentrate all key information like grant documents and details in one place, providing an in-depth view regardless of funding sources or the type of awards. When it comes to reporting, you can compare actual versus budget figures on a basis that allows the user to specify custom reporting periods. This means that you can compare information through periods that don't necessarily follow your organization's fiscal year. You can also configure your grant records to include details that are unique to your program delivery so that you can then search and report on them at a later date. You can also reduce billing errors by associating accounting entries with grants and then flagging qualified expenses at entry. Then with just a click, you can gather those eligible charges for reporting and billing so that you never miss a charge or overstated amount. In relation to timekeeping data, Sage Intacct connects employee actions per grant to timesheets based on the expense invoice, indirect costs at a negotiated rate, specific rate, or markup. Now, when it comes to mission delivery, we can also provide visibility to all those who need it using a role-based dashboard such as this one. You can also monitor the budget plan as well as the related spending as and when grants are used. To take things one step further, we can also connect Sage Intacct Resource Management to grant tracking. This will allow us to take into account staffing and utilization capabilities. With everything pertaining to grants in a single location, we can generate a single source of shared truth for both staff and auditors. And if desired, we can also connect Sage Intacct's non-profit revenue management, meaning we can track barriers, automate recognition as objectives are achieved, and streamline our compliance processes. Now let's take a look into how Sage Intacct can produce outcome-based reports. Let's consider a scenario in which a non-profit organisation has multiple locations and runs multiple programs that are aimed at serving the community through volunteering. This creates a need for accessing data around the amount of service users or clients reached, the impact of each location, the number of volunteers used in order to create the impact itself, and of course the incurred costs with running the programs across these different locations. Sage Intacct is perfectly designed to deliver these insights to its users. We can set up an unlimited amount of statistical accounts, which is what you can see here. And Sage Intacct will even organize them into statistical journal types for when companies have a vastly diverse array of different data sets. After creating the necessary accounts and postings, we can then generate a report such as this one. This report incorporates both the financial account groups as well as the statistical accounts down the left-hand side. Whilst this is a very useful report, by creating a dashboard with an array of account groups, graphs, and reports, we can achieve much more. As you can see, we're able to produce incredibly detailed views of our operations from an outcome perspective. At the top here, we have performance cards, which are comparing both financial and statistical data on a year-by-year basis. Beneath these, we have the report that we just ran, as well as multiple graphs and charts that use our statistical accounts to generate visual representations of our data, allowing for analysis to be performed with ease. When you consider that we can create an unlimited amount of dashboards with numerous filtering options available, they can quickly become a finance department's go-to for key information. In the last section of this demonstration, we'll be looking at spend management. When it comes to managing budgets and controlling the expenditure of your company, you need a clear combination of visibility, detailed restrictions, and a method of implementing flexible rules. Sage Intacct's spend management tool is ideal for key stakeholders to make informed purchasing decisions. We can set up our budget and spend management system so that it can be applied to an array of different purchasing transactions. So in this case, as you can see, we're looking at a purchase order. Spend management is normally configured to only come into action when a combination of specific dimensions are entered. In this case, we can enter an item, a location, a department, a site, and a grant. This will allow the system to identify a specific budget to use when generating our spend insight. As you can see, by selecting Show Spend Insight, we can see our budget, our actual, our committed expenditures, the transaction amount, and the funds available. This provides a valuable insight in regard to the viability of the transaction itself when relating to the financial capacity of an organization. Whilst this is incredibly useful for the person raising the transaction, if a purchasing approval policy is in operation, the approver can also take this valuable snapshot of information into account when making their decision. With spend management, we can also choose to either restrict or warn users when they create a transaction that will take the current spend over budget. In this case, I'm going to input a transaction amount that will take us over the budgeted allowance. Once I click Post, we should then see a clear warning at the top of the page informing us that the transaction will create an overspend. If we wish to proceed and create the transaction, an email will then be sent to the spend management admin so that they are also aware of the overspend. In the event that we want to use a restrictive policy, we can also configure spend management to block all transactions that would create an overspend. And that brings us to an end of this brief demonstration of Sage Intacct for non-profits. If you would like to find out more about Sage Intacct and what it can do for non-profit organizations, then please don't hesitate to reach out to a member of the ION team. Thank you very much for watching.